Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's 9 o'clock. It's time for another video. Now today, this is normally one of the most anticipated videos of the year, and it's one that everybody always looks forward to. I'm going to be predicting what's going to happen in 2026. Now I'm currently filming this right in the middle of December, which means I'm halfway through the December madness. I haven't slept at all. I am doing like 65 million gigs, and I'm just waiting for that moment where I can have a bit of a break. If we have, however, batched this correctly, it means that you are watching this right at the beginning of 2026. And if we've managed to do this correctly, I just want to say Happy New Year. I want to say I hope you're having a good 2026 so far, and I hope your holiday season was good. Now, what is this video all about? Well, you know what? I'm going to take a look at the industry. I'm going to take a look at the magic industry, and I'm going to try and predict what's happening in this industry throughout the course of 2026. Now, I've done this video every single year for the last few years, and sometimes I do really well, sometimes not so well. Last year, I did amazingly. A lot of the things, if you go back and look at the predictions video I made last year, a lot of them actually came true. The year before, not so much. So you never know. You never know at all. However, I've had a look at the industry as a whole, and I think this is what's going to happen. Now, I have no insider knowledge on this. It's not like I have somebody in the industry telling me exactly what's going to happen. It's not like you can really predict what's going to happen. But having a broad overview of everything that's going on and working with so many different companies, I think I see where certain things are heading. So, we're going to get into it. But what I want you to do down in the comments is let me know if you agree or if you disagree. And if you've got a prediction of your own, I would like to know what that prediction is as well. Please leave it down below in the comments. But we're going to get into it. So, without further ado, let's get into what's going to happen in the magic industry in 2026. Okay, so prediction number one is Alakazam is going to buy the 1914, and something's going to happen. Now, I said I had no insider knowledge. This is the only caveat to that, because I've known for a while that Alakazam are buying the 1914. And I think it's a super smart decision for Peter and Harry to buy the 1914, because Alakazam have shown over and over again in these last couple of years, one, they have systems in place for exponential growth. You look at their you look at what they're doing in America and you can see that. But secondly, you can see that they're not afraid to take a risk, and they'll bring companies on board into the Alakazam infrastructure and allow them to be part of Alakazam whilst at the same time giving them their own identity. You look at Ace Magic Studio that they bought a few years ago, and you see that they had their own identity for Ace. You look at Print by Magic. This is something that the Nardis have they really kind of have an ability to be able to pull this off. Now, Dee and Jack from the 1914, they are the founders of the 1914. They stepped away simply because they were too busy. Jack's filming and Dee's performing all over the world. But when they set up the 1914, it was very, very different to any other magic company out there. Very, very different to Alakazam. You know, the branding was very on point. The type of effect that they released was on point. The way they communicated with their audience, very, very different to any other magic company out there. Now, having spoken to Peter and Harry about this, the plan for Alakazam is that they buy the 1914, but it continues to have its own identity. So it continues to be the 1914. It's almost like it's completely separate to Alakazam, and yet it's kind of an open secret that they are part of the same family. It's a little bit like back in the day, if you're a wrestling fan like I am, it's a little bit like back in the day before Vince McMahon became Mr. McMahon and he was just a commentator. You know, everybody knew he was the owner of WWF, but you didn't really kind of say anything about it. It's the same sort of thing. So I think they really want to have 1914 have its own identity, and they're going to continue to release Magic through the 1914. They're going to continue to release Magic through the 1914 in the style and in the way that the 1914 did, which I think is a really smart move, because just bringing the 1914's product catalogue into Alakazam would just mean that the 1914 would devolve and disappear. It would just go. Everything that 1914 brought out would just become part of the Alakazam back catalogue, and anything else that came out, it would just be an Alakazam trick with the 1914 logo slapped on. But having its own identity, I think that's really smart. And that brings me to the second part of the prediction, which is, I really do think that the 1914 is going to blow up bigger than ever before. I really do believe that this is going to be one of the success stories of 2026. And let me explain why. One of the things that held the 1914 back, if we're being completely honest, because it had everything it needed to succeed. And if it had been as successful as Jack and Dee wanted it to be, they wouldn't have given it up, regardless of what else is going on in their life. The reason it wasn't as successful as they wanted it to be is just because of resources, really, more than anything else. When you first set up a business, you don't have resources. I've talked about this on the channel before. Every trick funds the next trick, and every trick after that funds the next trick. It takes a long time to build yourself up to a level where you have the resources, like a Penguin Magic, like an Alakazam, like a Vanishing Ink, where you can have multiple releases coming out at the same time. That's something that you need resources, you need money. It's not something that can happen overnight. So a lot of the time with the 1914, they had other ideas, they had multiple ideas, but they just didn't have the funds, or they didn't have the human resources to be able to bring it out. Now, if Alakazam are doing exactly what they say they're doing, and they are going to have the 1914 with its own identity, I think there's lots of people within the industry that just won't even realize that Alakazam own the 1914. I don't think that it's going to be an issue to anybody whether they do or not. I think if they're running it as its own separate business, but you now have the financial backing of Alakazam behind it, and you have the resources of Alakazam, because don't forget, it's a very growing team. They keep adding more members to their team all the time, and they've got Chris James over in America, so they've got the infrastructure over there if they choose to use it, which I'm sure they will. Taking the infrastructure of Alakazam, taking the human resource aspect of Alakazam, taking the knowledge base of Alakazam, because they are on point when it comes to social media, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to customer interaction, all of this stuff they're completely on point with. And also taking the checkbook of Alakazam, putting it into an already existing working product and brand, which already has its own user base. I think that Alakazam are literally the only company that can actually take 1914 and make it bigger. I think that 1914 is going to be bigger than ever before. And I think if Alakazam was smart, they would really lean into 1914 being its own identity. I would have somebody like Jamie Dawes, almost like the face of the 1914. I would have him going to conventions with the 1914 booth, so that there's a completely separate booth. I wouldn't make the 1914 products part of the Alakazam booth at conventions. I would literally try to keep these two brands as separate as possible. And I think doing that, but also providing the support from a higher level, I'm pretty sure that the 1914 will go to levels that we've never seen before, especially as when Alakazam have bought the 1914, they've bought it lock stock. So in other words, they've bought not just the assets, the brand, the website, the customer database, the back catalogue, but all of the stuff they were working on as well. And I know there was multiple stuff they were working on. Heck, I was working on something with them. So I think that it's going to be really successful. I really do. I think that it's really going to be big. And I think it's a super smart decision to buy the 1914. Okay, prediction number 2 is that Vanishing Ink will buy the Scott Alexander range, and especially the books. Now, I made this prediction last year and it didn't come true. However, I don't know why it didn't. Well, I think I have a rough idea, but this is a match made in heaven as far as I'm concerned. Vanishing Ink have made a name for themselves in a few different ways, but one of which is bringing out books and really kind of helping creators and artists have a stage, kind of preserving magical history. There's a lot of stuff that Vanishing Ink stand for as a company that would make this deal really smart, because obviously Scott Alexander had a book that he brought out a couple of years before he passed away, but he had another book, and if we look at his social media, he pretty much had finished writing it. And that's two huge books there. Now the first one, what was it, 52 Memories? The first one sold out very, very quickly, and a lot of people were clamoring to buy a copy and couldn't get a copy of that book. The second one, nobody got it. Even though people had pre-ordered, nobody got it because of Scott passing away, unfortunately. Just those two books there, just those two books would be huge for Vanishing Ink. They have the resources and they have the ability to be able to take those books, finish them off in any way that they see fit, and release them to the Magic community. And we've seen what they've done with the Conover books, right? We've seen what they've done with every book that they've ever released. The Conover books were taking decades to come out, and they've been huge, right? Vanishing Ink know what they're doing when it comes to books. But not only that, if you buy the Scott Alexander range, you're also going to be buying all of the tricks he brought out over the years. You're probably going to have the rights to all of the digital content. You're probably going to have the rights to the standing up on stage DVDs, of which there were like 9 volumes. That can all be digitalized. That can all be put online. You could almost have a virtual Scott Alexander masterclass if you wanted to. There's so much that they can do with that material that Scott has released. There's so much that they can do with all of that material. They could be dripping the big hitters out over the next few years. We know from watching Vanishing Ink, they have no problem spending money on higher ticketed items. You know, this is the same company that's brought out tricks that are 500 quid, 600 quid, 700 quid, 1,000 quid. A lot of Scott Alexander's stuff was a high ticketed item, but it didn't cost very much to make. People were prepared to pay a lot for Scott's stuff. It didn't cost a lot to make because you knew that you were getting something really clever, because that was Scott's kind of reputation, right? So they could even reduce the price on this stuff whilst still maintaining the quality. I think that they could have an entire range. I think the Magic community would love them for it because Scott was beloved in the Magic community. I think that it would buy a lot of goodwill, but also just with the books alone, I think it can make them a lot of money. I think from a business point of view, it makes sense. But from a goodwill and a relationship with the community point of view, I think it makes sense as well. So I don't know. The only reason I can think why it didn't take place last year is because Vanishing Ink were busy. I know they've got a ton of stuff on. They had the Conover books. I can imagine that they've only got so much stuff they can work on any given time. Obviously they had the warehouse issues from the year before when the warehouse burnt down. It might not have been the right time. But I think Vanishing Ink and Scott Alexander are a match made in heaven. And I think if anybody is going to buy the Scott Alexander range, it's going to be Vanishing Ink. Okay, number 3, I think there's going to be a new face of Penguin Magic. I really do think there's going to be a new face of Penguin Magic. And the reason I think that is because Penguin have always relied on having somebody front and center, or a couple of people front and center. So first of all, we remember the Jay Nobilizadas and the Oz Perlmans from back in the day. And then after that, I think we had the Rick Lax era, and I think Justin Flom was involved in that in a little bit as well. And then the more modern era, we've had Eric Tate and we've had Nick Lacapo. Now it's kind of a It's an open secret that Nick has moved to Chicago from Columbus. For those of you that don't know, Penguin Magic is based in Columbus, and Nick was in Columbus for years and years and years and years and years when he was working with Dan Harlan, and when he was working on all the Tarbell series and everything that we've seen Nick do with Penguin. He was working out of Columbus. He's now moved to Chicago, and he's one of the key players in creating this new venue for magicians in Chicago. Now, he's been there now for over a year. I don't know how long exactly, probably about a year and a half, getting this venue ready. But it's also kind of an open secret that he's going to be the guy that's going to be managing that whole thing, booking acts and so on and so forth. And I can imagine that when it actually opens, his life is going to get ridiculously busy. Now, while he's been over in Chicago, he's still been doing stuff for Penguin. We know that because we see the videos coming out. But you watch the videos and you realize that he's not actually in the studio in Columbus anymore. He's filming them from Chicago, which is fine because he's obviously married to Gally, and the two of them are, videographers. So that works, and that works really, really well. And having somebody able to, having Nick in any capacity is a good thing for Penguin Magic, because Nick is amazing, and I think regardless of what happens, Nick will still be at Penguin Magic in some capacity. But I do think that when this venue opens, his role is going to not going to be as prominent at Penguin Magic. I don't think it can be, because once this venue opens, he's going to be putting all of his time and interests and energy into making sure that venue is a success. So I think his relationship with Penguin is winding down a little bit. We know this. Magic Live this year, I was on the booth, Eric was on the booth, no Nick Lacapo. It's the only year I can think of that Nick wasn't at Magic Live. No, he was there. He was a punter. He wasn't anything to do with Penguin. So even though he's still filming videos, I think that we're going to see the level of quantity of output that comes from Penguin Magic be reduced with Nick. And as good as Eric is, and dear Lord, Eric Tate is amazing, I think that Penguin Magic is a beast. Penguin Magic is huge. Penguin Magic is somebody who's worked with Penguin Magic for many, many years, I can tell you that the amount of stuff that Nick and Eric had to do was nothing short of phenomenal, because they're always doing work over there. And at the moment, Eric's picking up a lot of the slack, and that will only get worse. And I think that there's only so much that Eric Tate can do, especially as he's a performer himself, he's a creator himself. He's got a lot of the roles in the company as well. So I can see that Eric, in order to maintain the level of output that they're making, and in order to continue to release the products that they are, and so on and so forth, I think you need another face of Penguin Magic to work alongside Eric Tate. I think that time is coming, and I think it will come in 2026. No idea who the face is, but definitely 100% we're going to see a new face of Penguin Magic, because Penguin have shown that they like to have somebody that their audience can identify with, and I think that's a smart way to go. A lot of the big magic companies and a lot of the big magic producers do have that, and I can see that continuing to be the case throughout 2026. I think that we're going to see somebody replace Nick Lacapo. Okay, prediction number 4. I think that Penn and Teller are either going to retire, or they're going to announce their retirement. I think that they're close to being done, as far as I'm concerned, and that's a shame, but I think that's the way it is. I've been watching some videos recently of Teller, and he's looking really old. We all know he's not had the greatest of health recently. He's had heart bypass surgery, and I made this prediction last year. And it was kind of more of a pluck it out the air. The point I made last year is these guys are getting on in years, and they've got nothing left to prove. They created themselves. Their brand was they disrupt industries, and now they've got to a point where they've got nothing left to prove. They definitely don't need the money. Like, they must be rolling in it, the amount of stuff that they do, and they've continued to do. They've always kept themselves relevant. There's always a new TV project online. And I thought that they would retire this year, but that didn't happen. But I'm fairly confident that it will happen in 2026. 1, Teller's not looking any younger. 2, I think the big telling thing is, they've just finished their UK tour, and Penn has announced that he's doing a tour next year in the UK with Piff the Magic Dragon. And that's weird. That's the first time one half of Penn and Teller have gone and done a series of shows with someone else, in this case with Piff the Magic Dragon. And I think what's happening here is Penn is testing the water. I think Penn's testing, because I don't think Penn plans on retiring. I think that Penn's got a lot more energy. I think Teller might be done. I think Teller's holding on, but I think Penn still has a lot of energy there, and I think Penn still wants to keep going, and I think he's testing the water. I think this whole Piff the Magic Dragon thing is him testing the water to see how that relationship fits, to see whether it's got longevity, to see whether it's got legs. If it has, it could very much be a case of the Penn and Teller theatre becomes Piff and Pop. because I think Penn likes being part of a double act. I don't know Penn at all, but I've listened to a lot of his content. I've listened to a lot of his Sunday schools. I think I can get inside his head to a certain point. And I think there's certain things he likes doing and there's certain things he doesn't like doing. And I think he needs somebody with him to kind of bounce off and also to pick up the stuff that he doesn't like doing. I think that might be the case. And John Vanderput, Piff the Magic Dragon, would be the perfect idea there. I wouldn't be surprised if Teller turned around to Penn and said, look, this is my last year. I don't know what you're going to do. Figure it out. Get a solo show. Retire like I am. Go find another double act. And so now I think that that's what's happening. Now, they've not made a really big deal of it, but let's be honest, it's a very big deal that Penn and Teller are not touring next year as Penn and Teller, it's Penn and Piff. I think that's a huge deal. I think that's very, very telling as to what's going to happen over the course of 2026. I think that Teller just wants to put his feet up and you think he wants to retire. And we all know that Teller loves magic. I don't think he's going to disappear completely. I just think he's going to be focusing more on creating. I could see him maybe being behind the scenes in a new show that's got Piff and Penn with it, maybe as a consultant, or maybe he's just going to retire completely. But I'm fairly confident, looking at everything that I'm seeing here, that in 2026 they will either retire or they're going to announce their retirement in 2027. Okay, prediction number 5. And I know that there's going to be people in the comments that are saying, oh, Craig's just a hater. Craig hates Illusionist. I do not hate Illusionist by any stretch of the imagination. I've made videos on them in the past. I've said things that they've done that are really good. And I've also called them out on stuff that I don't think is as good. But, I don't hate Illusionist by any stretch of the imagination. I do, however, think that Illusionists are going to close down in 2026. I think that they're done. And there's a few different reasons why I think this. Now, I first spoke about this on the Magic Podcast with Lloyd Barnes. I brought this up as a subject with Lloyd, and I was like, look, I think Illusionists are not long for this world. But let me explain why I think that. There's a few different reasons. First of all, they've not replaced their face, and they're a little bit like Penguin Magic in that they've always got a face of Illusionist. They've always had this person that kind of represents the brand, and the last person or people that did that was Mark Lemon and Pete Turner. Mark Lemon and Pete Turner. And Mark Lemon and Pete Turner left for whatever reason, I'm not too sure, and they haven't really replaced that. The other thing is you're not seeing as much output from them at all. You're not seeing as many tricks come out from Illusionists. You used to see stuff coming out all the time. Now that's not the case. Now you could argue that they're just going for quality over quantity, but I don't know. There's not really a buzz about things these days. Ask yourself a question. When was the last thing that Illusionist bought out that was really, really, really buzzworthy? Now, there's some stuff that's come out through Illusionist through the French Twins, but I think that's kind of a different relationship. I think that's a French Twins product that Illusionist are holding for them or promoting for them. But I don't really see a big hitter coming out from Illusionist. The other thing is their socials. Let me just grab my phone for a minute, and I haven't done this, so let me just check. I'm going to go onto Illusionist right now. I'm going to go onto YouTube. I'm going to take this off Do Not Disturb, and I'm going to go onto YouTube and I'm going to type in Illusionist. Right. Okay. So I've typed in Illusionist onto YouTube. Let's have a look at their videos. So their videos are not really. The last couple of days they put some up. So they put up a video 4 days ago, and they put a video 8 days up ago and 11 days ago, right? Ironically, that's pretty much around about the same time that I spoke on the Magic Podcast about how they were dying. Before that, it was 5 months ago, 7 months ago, 8 months ago, 10 months ago. Bearing in mind that this is a company that really became successful by interacting with their user base. That's what they did. They built a name for themselves by really tapping into pop culture within their fan base. And then you look at I'm looking at I'm looking at Instagram here, and the amount that they're posting on Instagram isn't great at all either. They're not really posting that much on Instagram compared to how much they usually posted, and the interaction isn't there either. And I think that is part of the problem. I think that's a kind of an issue as well. But beyond that, you know, their Black Friday sale was not good at all by any stretch of the imagination. Their Black Friday sale wasn't exciting. They just said, hey, every seventh order is going to be free. And then you look at the amount of orders that they had, because they publicized the amount of orders, and it wasn't an amazing amount of orders compared to how much I know is done by Penguin Magic, compared to how much I know is done by Vanishing Ink, compared to how much I know is done by Alakazam. And you look at all of this and you kind of go, well, okay, it's almost like their attention really isn't on the product anymore. I spoke to, I got messaged by an artist a few weeks ago who asked for some advice on marketing a trick, and they showed me their trick and it was really good. And they said, I went to Illusionist, and Illusionist turned it down because they said they weren't taking submissions at the moment. Now, I don't know if that was a nice way to blow this guy off, or he said to me that they're not taking submissions at the moment, and they're not planning on in the future. That sounds like the sort of thing that would be said by a company that's winding down. And at the same time, Illusionists have been very, very public about this marketing company that they've actually set up. They've got this huge marketing company that they're wanting to take the Illusionist way of marketing, and they're wanting to kind of tap it into any company, not just in Magic, but outside of Magic. And I think that a large part of the focus is there as well. So you put all of these things together, and it's not one individual thing. It looks to me like Illusionists are winding down a little bit, and it looks to me like Illusionists are really kind of getting ready to call it a day. I don't know if that's the case or not, but all the signs, as far as I'm concerned, are pointing to Illusionists kind of disappearing, because I think they've had their day. As much as, they're still relevant in the industry, don't get me wrong. I mean, they're nowhere near where they were a decade ago or 15 years ago, where they dominated this industry. They're nowhere near they were when they would release a trick and it would absolutely blow up out of all proportions, and it would just be the most exciting trick of all time that everybody had. Think about it, these days, nobody even talks about the Illusionist products when they come out. Like, there's not really much said that's on the Magic Cafe or on Facebook discussion forums, and that's kind of very telling as well. So yeah, I think that the winding it down, I think that we're going to see a blowout sale or something. I think if that was the case, if Illusionists did close down, or they announced that they were closing down, I think it would be smart for a company to come in and buy the assets. I think that this would be a great acquisition for someone like Murphy's Magic. I think Murphy's Magic buying Illusionist would be absolutely incredible. I think that not just Murphy's, but I think there's going to be tons of companies that would buy Illusionist, and I think that they could do almost what I said Alakazam are going to do with the 1914, but obviously that's a discussion for a time as and if that happens. But yeah, I'm fairly confident in 2026 Illusionists are going to close down. Okay, so next, the sixth prediction is that Theory 11 are really going to try and tap into the beginner magician market space, and they're going to almost try and position themselves as a global competitor to Marvin's Magic. Let me explain why I think that. So first of all, I've done a deep dive on Theory 11. Those guys are super smart. They are really clever when it comes to their marketing. They're really clever when it comes to their branding. They're really clever when it comes to teaming up with various different brands. And you see what they've done with playing cards, right? But they've always had their roots in Magic. Even when they kind of moved away from Magic, they were still releasing Magic products here and there. Magic is always a thing that they have done. Now, recently, they bought out, with Zach King, the new range of tricks. Was it called Trick Starters or something? Where they took like things that looked very Tenyu-esque and rebranded them under Zach King's brand and pushed them out to everywhere, not just the Magic community. Even though they were available through all Magic shops, they were available outside of Magic as well. And I think they brought out 4 different things. And the other thing that I noticed is that you saw a lot of influencers in magic performing these tricks over a very short period of time. So I saw so many, before they even came out, before they even got launched, I saw some big name influencers in magic that were performing these tricks on their social media, on their socials, on their Instagram, on their YouTube. And that's very telling to me. That shows me that they wanted these to be very, very successful. For Theory 11 to reach out to all these influencers and have them perform these tricks, they wanted these to be a success. And I think that these were testing the water because the problem with magic, right, is it is a niche marketplace. And what I mean by that is, realistically, if you're going to bring out a magic trick, the only people that are going to buy it are people that are within magic, right? It's why their playing cards are so successful, because when they bring out a pack of cards that's tied into, for example, Marvel or Deadpool and Wolverine, now all of a sudden you've got a bigger marketplace that wants to buy that stuff. So now it's not just magicians, it's card collectors, it's people like Marvel, it's people who like that subject matter. It's why their cards are phenomenally probably the most successful thing that they do, right? You're always going to have a niche when it comes to magic. Now, the way to make magic super successful, the way to get more people to buy magic than ever before, the way to bring out a magic product and have it ridiculously successful is bring out a magic trick that appeals to the general public. I was talking about this with Greg Rostami a few weeks ago, and Greg was talking about one of his most successful tricks is actually iForce, because iForce got kind of exposed years ago on the Gadget Show in England, and they showed iForce years ago, and off the back of iForce being shown on the Gadget Show, he had like thousands of orders, literally overnight. These days in magic, if your product sells 1,000 units, it's been a successful product. The way to sell tens of thousands, the way to really scale that product up, is by having people outside of magic buy that trick. And you see that in the sales figures from Marvin's Magic. Marvin's Magic is super successful. They shift so much product, it's ridiculous. And part of the reason is Marvin's Magic are not appealing to magicians. Marvin's Magic are appealing to people that just the general public. They're hoping to spark an interest in magic by showing them something, and it's like, oh wow, that's cool. And I think that that's what Theory 11 are trying to do, because that's what they've done with the playing cards, and they've always stayed true to magic. So I think what they've done is they've bought out this Zach King, they've teamed up with Zach King, because that's what they do. They look for brand partnerships, and Zach King is somebody who is very well known for doing magic, but obviously he transcends magic, right? He's not a magician. We all know this, right? But he's got a huge following. By teaming up with him to bring out this range, they're giving this range the best possible chance to succeed by reaching out to influencers and having those influencers perform these tricks. It shows how much stock they have in wanting to make them successful. I can pretty much guarantee that the guys at Theory 11 are looking at the sales figures, at how many were sold within the industry, how many were sold outside of the industry. I'm willing to bet that way more units were sold outside of the magic industry than were sold inside the magic industry, even though every magic shop sells them because they went through Murphy's. And I think that they were testing the water, and if this is successful, they're going to bring out their own brand of beginner magic. They're going to compete with the Marvin's Magics of the world, because as cool as Marvin Magic is, as successful as Marvin's Magic is, it is very kid orientated. It is very kid centric, right? The branding and the colors and everything is designed to really appeal to children. Whilst you look at the branding for the Zach King range, the Theory 11 range, it's kind of almost like what Illusionist did 15, 20 years ago. And it's kind of more edgy and cool, and I think they're going for that market, maybe the young adult, maybe the teen, maybe that sort of age. And I think they're trying to appeal to people to get them into magic, because it's a really smart thing to do, right? Because if you have someone buy this stuff and they have a big range, they're going to buy more of them and more of them and more of them. And then Theory 11 have their own range of stuff, so that when they start getting into magic, they can, siphon them off into other stuff. And typically what happens is when somebody comes into Magic, they tend to stick with the Magic company that they found. It's why Penguin Magic is so successful, because a lot of people find Penguin Magic. So even though after they've been in Magic for a while, they'll go to other Magic shops, people will still gravitate back to the original Magic shop. People that come through Penguin Magic will stay there forever. And I think that'll be the same thing with Theory 11. And those guys are super smart. They're super smart when it comes to exponential growth. They're super smart at diversifying. And I think that this is their strategy. I think that the release of the 4 tricks were just to test the water. And in 2026, I think that they are going to announce a bigger brand, more tricks coming, and they're going to take really more of a time and effort over that. That's what I think will happen. There you go. Okay, so prediction number 7. Prediction number 7 is that I think that I've wrote here, I'll tell you exactly what I've wrote, and I don't think what I've wrote is correct, but it will allow me to kind of talk through what I mean. I've wrote the app market will die. The Magic app market will die. I don't think it's going to die. However, I do think that it's going to be put on life support a little bit. I think that apps have been really successful for many, many years. And I think that what's happening now is that I think that apps are... There's so many companies that are bringing out apps right now. It used to be 2 or 3 companies or 2 or 3 people who are bringing out apps, all of the Magic apps. But now I can't keep up with the amount of apps that are coming out to magicians. There's like 10 or 12 of them every single day. And Lloyd Barnes spoke about this on the Magic podcast. Some of them are absolutely terrible. Some of them are coming out and they don't do what they do, or they do what they say they're doing, but it's very simplistic. And one of the reasons for that is the rise of AI. Now, with AI, you can create your own app in minutes. In order to create an app, normally in the past, you had to go to an app developer. It would take a long time to get that app in a position where you could market it. Now, you can have an idea for a very simple app, and you can use AI to create that app and push it out to people immediately. It's a little bit like when Magic started really focusing on the Penguin Partner Program and the Wire and things like that. We saw a huge rise in instant downloads. We saw a huge rise in downloadable content. And the problem is, because nobody was policing it, a lot of it was really bad. Because you could be somebody brand new into Magic that's got no experience and has got no skill at creating and haven't flexed that creative muscle yet. And you could put a video out saying, right, okay, this is my new trick. This is what I think. And you can have places like Penguin Magic market it, and you can have, it becoming successful. And what that led to is the downfall of instant downloads, because so many downloads were coming out all of the time. It caused the download industry effectively to crash, which is why now you hardly see any downloads come out, and even though it still happens, they're few and far between. Now I think the same thing is happening to the app market. I think there's so many apps coming out these days, and a lot of them are very low quality. I think that it's going to be very difficult for a really good app to kind of really take control of the marketplace, because it is so crowded. I also think people are getting sick to death of apps. I mean, there's only so many you can put on your phone, and also you've got the fact that not all of them, but some of them are not supported. We're very, very aware of a few years ago when Illusionist just announced that they were stopping support for all of their apps. A lot of the apps that are bought out by sort of independents and people who maybe aren't a big production company, they just disappear once they've took your money. We are aware of the problems of Inject with Greg Rostami. Inject went through a hell of a 2025 where it wasn't able to be used. It crashed. Users were getting so frustrated, and a lot of people migrated away from Inject because of that. And then when I bought out the Atomic Deck, one of the big negatives that people had is that one of the ways to use it used an app, and people were like, I never want to use an app. I don't want to use an app. And I think that anything like apps, I think apps, shortcuts, I think that people are getting burnt out on them, and I honestly don't think that they're going to be as prevalent in 2026, because the bottom line is the reason why producers make anything is to make money, right? It's a business. That's the thing. The magic business is a business. So if you're bringing out apps and nobody's buying them, or they're not breaking even, or they're not doing very well financially, then they're going to get less backing. And so what you're going to be reduced to is a bunch of people getting AI to make very overly simplistic apps that just nobody's using. And I think that we're going to see the people that even the people that are staunch defenders of apps, I think that they're going to have their interest wane throughout 2026. So I don't think the app market is going to die completely, but I do think it's going to go on life support, and I do think we're going to see less apps than ever before. Okay, so prediction number 8. I think that Trick Boom are going to release the trick of the year in 2026, and I think I know what it is. I said I had no insider knowledge at the beginning of this video. I lied on this one as well. I have got some insider knowledge. Noel and Roddy have shown me something that I think is going to be the trick of the year. I do not think anything can touch it. Now, you never know, right? You never know what's going to be trick of the year. You never know what's around the corner. But I am in a fortunate position that a lot of the bigger stuff I'm aware of way before it comes out, normally 6 to 8 months ahead of time. So a lot of the bigger stuff, I know what's coming out. I know what's around the corner. I know what a lot of Penguin's tricks are going to be in 2026. I know a lot of the stuff that Murphys are bringing out. I know a lot of the stuff that Alakazam are bringing out. I know a lot of the stuff that TCC are bringing out, and I've seen a lot of things. And honestly, this product that Trick Boom are going to be launching at the Blackpool Magic Convention, which involves a borrowed ring, that's all I'm going to tell you. It involves a borrowed ring. I think that's going to be trick of the year. I don't think anything will be able to touch it, because it's one of those tricks that will appeal to literally every single subsection. It'll appeal to it'll appeal to close-up magicians. It'll appeal to stage magicians. It'll appeal to family entertainers, kids entertainers, hobbyists, social performers. Everybody will want to get this, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. And when I saw it and Noel showed it me, I was like, that's it. Nobody's going to touch that. No one can possibly touch that. There is not a single idea in magic that is going to be as good as what you have there. So, yeah, I mean, this is a very quick prediction, but I think regardless of what's coming out, the trick of the year in 2026 will be a trick coming out at the Blackpool Magic Convention by Trick Boom. Okay, prediction number 9. I think that more new magicians are going to gravitate towards stage magic in 2026. For the last 10, 15, 20 years, people coming into magic have gone into close-up magic. And the reason is close-up magic has always been cool. It's very accessible. When I first got into magic, it was kind of all about stage magic, to be perfectly honest. But that obviously changed over time. And I think close-up magic is always going to be there, don't get me wrong. But there's a few things that I'm seeing. So first of all, there's less programs on TV right now that promote magic through the use of close-up magic. In the last decade, we had Dynamo, we had David Blaine, we had all of these different artists going out and doing close-up magic and making close-up magic cool. A lot of the stuff that's on TV at the moment, Masters of Deception, Penn and Teller Fool Us, America's Got Talent, Britain's Got Talent, a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of the content on these programs are stage performances. And don't forget, it's these programs that get new people into magic. And I think that I'm seeing a lot of people asking questions on my channel more than ever before. I want to be a stage performer. What do I have to do to be a stage performer? Then I look at the YMC, which is a good gauge for me. I look at the Young Magicians Club, which is the junior section of the Magic Circle that Ryland and Thea are in. And I see a lot of the members there are focused on stage magic. Like the stage magic competition was incredible. So I'm seeing a lot of younger magicians that are really pushing towards stage magic. I see people like I see so many young magicians that are really wanting to get up on stage. I go quite regularly to the Magic Bar Live in London now, and I see a lot of the younger magicians in that area, like Macaulay and Harry and Emma, that regularly perform up on stage. You look at somebody like Harry Merlin Piper, you look at Killian O'Connor, you look at Ryland, you look at Thea, and you see that there's so many young magicians. Now, I did an interview recently on this channel with Thomas Moore, and Thomas Moore, who is one of the top illusion builders in the world, talked about how there's a massive hole for illusionists in the UK. And you look at the UK, there's not really many illusion acts, really, and the ones that are successful are already busy. Thomas Moore told me about a production company that spent a year looking for an illusionist for a contract on a ship, couldn't find anyone, so got Thomas Moore to build the illusions and teach an actor how to do illusions because they couldn't find an illusionist to come and do this contract. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities for people coming into magic to perform on stage more now than ever before. There's a lot of different, especially over here in the UK. I mean, obviously, I can't speak to the US, but in the UK, you know, we went through a period of time when working men's clubs closed down, that there were less places to go and perform on stage. But now you can see more places to perform on stage than ever before. So I think in 2026, we're going to see a big emphasis on stage magic, not just in terms of the tricks that are being released by producers and magic shops, but also by the the interest levels of people that are coming into magic as well. I think more people are going to gravitate to stage magic in 2026. Okay, prediction number 10. I think magic is not going to be doing as well this year on Britain's Got Talent. And I think that for a few different reasons. First of all, Russ Stevens is still involved in Britain's Got Talent, and I know that he's very excited about the acts that are coming forward this year. I'm not talking about how magic's going to be ridiculed on Britain's Got Talent. I don't mean that. I'm not going to say that the judges are going to start talking about how magic is pants. Not at all. I just don't think that magic will go through to the final this year on Britain's Got Talent. And I think one of the reasons is Harry Moulding won Britain's Got Talent last year as a magician. He was only the second magician in history to win Britain's Got Talent. And I think that, not that they have a say in it, but the producers, the company, would like a different style of act to win this year. Not only that, I think that the judges and the audience as a whole, the whole audience, you know, the whole UK watching Britain's Got Talent, I think that, you know, they'll be pushing towards other acts. So I think that the acts that are going to come on are going to be great. I think they're going to represent magic wonderfully. But I don't think we're going to see people getting through to the final as a magician. Because last year, Harry Moulding won. The year before, I think Jack Rhodes came second place, didn't he? The year before, Killian O'Connor came second place. Magic's always been in the top three, and it's always been huge. I think that this year we're going to see either no acts get through into the final, or if there is an act in the final, it's not going to be in the top three. I think that maybe the general public, although I've gone through the BGT thing. BGT is not fixed at all as far as I'm concerned, at least from my experience of being involved in it with Ryland. But what I can tell you is that the production company can, there's ways that things can be influenced, and I just think that the focus is going to be on something else this year instead of magic. But I still think magic is going to be well represented. I think that there's going to be some amazing magicians in the auditions. I think there's going to be some amazing magicians in the semi-finals. I just don't think that magic is going to be as prevalent in the final as it has been in previous years. Okay, next prediction number 11. Jack Rhodes, who we just talked about a second ago, will become a household name in 2026. I think that the next big star making mainstream success coming out of magic will be Jack Rhodes. As far as I'm concerned, that guy has everything. He is funny, he is likable, he is talented, he looks good on camera, his social media presence is amazing. He is very much an everyday guy, but still has the showmanship and the attitude and the character to get everybody to like him. His shows are absolutely incredible. He's very, very different to anyone else out there. He's very creative. He's very driven. He's ambitious, and I can see him being a breakout star in 2026. You know, he came second a couple of years ago, Britain's Got Talent. Off the back of that, he was on Britain's Got Talent again last year in the Mask. He's continued to dominate social media. He's got his own tour that's doing remarkably well. He's back at Blackpool Magic Convention for the second year in a row, which is always an indicator of how high someone's stock is valued. And I just think we haven't had a star on UK TV for a while. I don't think we've had a breakout magician on UK TV for a while, and I think it's going to be Jack Rhodes. I think Jack Rhodes is going to become a household name now. Whether that means he gets his own TV show, or they announce that he's having his own TV show, or he gets involved in some capacity on something else, I just think we're going to be seeing Jack Rhodes a hell of a lot more in 2026, and I think we're going to be seeing him live, we're going to see him in theatres, we're going to see him on TV. I think 2026 is going to be the year of Jack Rhodes. Okay, this is one that I'm not 100% sure of myself, but number 12, I think that David Copperfield is going to announce his retirement. Or I don't think he's actually going to retire, but I think he's going to announce his retirement. I've spoken to people that have gone and seen his show over the last few years, and they've said it's gone downhill. And that's not lay people. Sorry, that's not magicians I'm speaking to. That's lay people. You look at the reviews for his show online, and you look at the more recent reviews, and there's a lot of people that are saying things like he feels like he's going through the motions. Obviously, he's not been in the public eye for decades, outside of the fact that he is a multimillionaire magician. It's not like he's done a special for a long time, right? Which is what he used to do to keep himself on top. He announced the whole I'm going to make the moon disappear, and then didn't, and around about the same time that the Epstein list came out, and I think that harmed him, and I think he was told to take a step back from all of this stuff, and I think he doesn't need it. He doesn't need to be this guy anymore. He's he's always going to be in magic. I think he loves magic. You wouldn't build a museum dedicated to magic if you didn't love magic. I think the guy loves magic, but I just think that, at his age, it's a little bit like Penn and Teller. I think he needs to just sit back and relax. And I think that every year gets harder for him. And I think with all of the stuff that's going on outside of magic and all of the, I don't know if he. I think he wants to do another special, and I don't think he's been given that opportunity. I don't think he's getting that opportunity. And the other thing is, we know that the Vegas is going downhill a little bit in terms of less people are going to Vegas than ever before for a few different reasons. One, that's a fact. Go and Google it. Look at Vegas. Vegas is not the holiday destination it used to be. Less people are going into America at the moment because of various different reasons. I'm not going to get political here, but Vegas has definitely gone downhill in terms of visitor numbers. That's a fact. And, a lot of shows are getting cancelled on the Strip. That's a fact. And we also know that Copperfield's show is a very expensive show to produce. All it takes is for less people to go and watch that show. All it takes is for less people to be interested in watching that show. And ultimately what's going to happen is, at the end of the day, if he's not out there as a presence going out on TV and really kind of increasing his brand, new people are going to Vegas all the time if they don't know who David Copperfield is. Just all the signs point towards, as much as David Copperfield, look, it might be out of his hands. He might want to carry on performing. He might not want to retire. He might want to carry on performing until the day that he dies. But it might be taken out of his hands if Vegas attendance continues to go downhill, and his show continues to drop and drop and drop, and the money's not there to continue to do it. They might just cancel the show, and he's got nothing to do with it. And then there's no choice at that point. If you haven't got a place to do your show, what do you do? I can't see him going down the Lance Burton route. When Lance Burton left Vegas, he toured. We've seen what Lance Burton has done, right? He's been very successful post Vegas, but I don't see Copperfield doing that. I could see him just going to his island, putting his feet up, and mooching around his museum. But what I don't see is, and I think he will choose to walk before he's pushed. I think that he wouldn't want to be the person that's had their show cancelled. I think he will realise that's happening before anyone else realises it's happening, and I think he would save face and say, you know what, I'm retiring, I don't need this anymore. And I could see that happening in 2026, especially if things continue to go the way that they're going in Vegas at the moment. Okay, number 13, penultimate one. Number 13, I think Paul Harris is going to return. I think Paul Harris Presents was one of the biggest brands in magic for a long time. If Paul Harris trick came out, everybody wanted to buy it. You look at how successful the things like the True Astonishment books were. the Paul Harris brand was very, very successful. And then over the last few years, it's gone away. Now, Deep X came out with Paul Knight and a couple of years ago or 3 years ago, and it had Paul Harris's name on it. And that just came out the blue. That was just like one product, and it did well. But I think that was Paul testing the water. It's kind of an open secret in this industry that he has another book coming out that he's spent a long time writing. That book is coming out soon, I believe. I have no insider knowledge on this, but I did speak to Paul a couple of years ago about that book. I've contributed one thing in it. And I believe it was getting close to being printed at that point. So I think it's an open secret in the industry. Another Paul Harris book is coming out, and I could see that being a catalyst to have his Paul Harris Presents brand continue again, almost like a phoenix rising from the ashes, because it just fizzled out at one point, and I think it's because he lost interest. But I think he's always loved magic. I think he will always continue to love magic, and I think that bare minimum, the book is going to come out and it's going to create a huge buzz, as it should. It's Paul Harris. However, the fact that he's got contributors to that book shows that he's more than happy to work with the wider community, and that's what he did with Paul Harris Presents. And I think that he will continue to do that in 2026. I think that we can see the Paul Harris Presents brand kind of making a resurgence. I might be wrong, but I do think his name is going to be kind of prevalent a lot more than it has been. Bare minimum, people are going to be talking about Paul Harris a lot more. I could even maybe see him making a few convention appearances. I could see that happening. But bare minimum, he's going to be bringing this book out. And the final prediction number 14. The final prediction is that I think that a little bit like when I said that apps are going to go away, I think that there's going to be less technology-based magic released. I think that we've had more and more and more technology-based magic come out every single year, and you see companies like Petata, or Peter, you see companies like Pro Mystic, you see all of these companies bringing out really expensive, high-end magic, and I think that we're reaching a breaking point for a few different reasons. The first reason is I think people are burnt out on it. I look at the comments on YouTube, I listen to what people are saying, and a lot of people are talking about how, I'm not going to buy anything else electronic. I've bought it in the past, it didn't work in my show. And I think people are genuinely concerned about the high-end tech not working and what happens if it doesn't work. Everyone's got I don't want to use that story because it scares me if it doesn't work. Ryland is a perfect example. So Ryland used to do colour match in his show, and he stopped doing colour match. And the reason he stopped doing colour match is because it stopped working on him multiple times. He used to do a prediction using a little mini printer built into a device. Stopped doing that because it stopped working on him. And he turned around to me and he said, look, I don't want to be doing my show and have to, I don't want to be doing my show and be in a situation where, I don't want to be doing my show and be in a situation where something's going to go wrong and it's outside of my control. If something goes wrong, I want it to go wrong because I've messed up, not because it's the device that's messed up. And I think that's a lot of people's attitude as well. I think that is a lot of people's attitude as well. I think that they're worried about that. Now, you couple that with the fact that I've seen a lot of sponsored ads recently for tricks that effectively do the same thing as commercially available magic. So Peter brought out a prediction thing on a keyring recently, where there was a keyring and a prediction went on it using e-ink. Well, I saw a sponsored ad last week for a key fob available for the general public, and this key fob just hands on your keys. It connects to your phone via Bluetooth, and you can literally just go into your photo library, and you can take any of the photos in the photo library, and you can Bluetooth it to the key fob, and it looks just like a photo. You wouldn't think that that's not a photo in there. That's a commercial prop. That's a commercial device that's available, that are putting sponsored ads out there at the moment that are trying to get people to buy buy these things for Christmas. Now, all you have to do is see an ad like that, and you do that Peter trick, and people are going to go, oh yeah, I saw an ad for something like that. Is it a Bluetooth electronic thing? Is that e-ink? And then all of a sudden, you've gone from being an incredible mentalist to being this guy that's just cheating using, simple technology. And that's the other problem. A lot of this really high-end tech is aimed at mentalists. Right, you look at the really high-end, expensive stuff, and a lot of it is aimed at mentalists because it's ways of making a prediction or peeking something or reading somebody's mind or whatever the case may be. And mentalists, by and large, want people to think that what they're doing is either A, real, or B, done using methods like psychology, body language, like human lie detector bullshit. That's what mentalists want people to think, right? Magicians, they're kind of more, yeah, I'm cheating. Yeah, deal with it. But a lot of the tech that comes out are for mentalists. So if the mentalist is in a situation where they've got this device, which is very, very similar to something that's coming out on a sponsored ad, do you think that mentalist is going to want to take a risk? Because I know mentalists are happy to take risks. There's a lot of mentalists that are like, you know what, there's only a 80% chance of this working, but it's worth it because if it doesn't work, I'm a mentalist. I can play that off as not working. That's fine. I get that. Yeah, absolutely. But do you want to be in a situation where you're telling people you're a mentalist and then somebody turns around in the audience and goes, oh yeah, I saw one of those. My wife bought me one for Christmas. Look, boom. Oh, want to see a card trick? Do you know what I mean? It's kind of... And it's not just that. I've seen a whole bunch of devices like that. I've seen a pen that looks like a pen, feels like this is another sponsored ad. I think that people thought I wanted to buy this for Sarah for Christmas. It's a pen, and it writes on any page, and it instantly transfers that into an app on your phone from the page. Now that's like a load of stuff that's come out for magicians. So all you have to do now is, as a magician, give somebody something, have them write it down, and there's going to be somebody who's bought that in the audience that's going to go, hang on a minute, that could be this. This is the method it could be. And I think that's a problem because all it takes, because here's the other thing, by the way, these items that are available to the general public, one, they're being publicized everywhere through sponsored ads and social media and so on and so forth. But two, the price is really cheap. Like that key fob thing that I told you about, that was like $50. I've ordered one. It's like $50, right? It's a lot cheaper than what we're being charged as magicians to effectively do the same thing, which means that because the price is so cheap and because there's adverts everywhere for it, there's a lot of lay people that are getting these things, that are buying them. So the chance of somebody in your audience being somebody who, even if they don't know the method, even if they look at that and they go, well, that can be achieved with this, and we know, look, they might not tell you in your show, but they might tell other people and go, oh, I think it's done like that. Oh, yeah, that would make sense. And then you're done, right? And I think that mentalists are going to, who is the audience, mentalists are the audience that's buying all this stuff. I think the mentalists are going to realize that they need to go old school. I think they need to go back to billet peaks and billet switches and peak wallets, because at least that is low tech and people can't think it's got anything to do with technology. And in 2026, I can see that being the case. I can see that more and more products are dropping like this. That's going to basically take the bottom out from underneath the technological market in magic. Now, I still think that tech is going to come out, but I think it will be the next level of tech. And what I mean by that is we've had a few years where we've had things that the lay people haven't even thought of. Now lay people are getting stuff that's very similar to what we've been using over the last few years. So now I think we're going to be seeing the next level of stuff like that, like inversion boards and motherboards and so on and so forth, where that's something very different to what lay people are seeing. I think we could see more of that style of magic. I think magic is basically tech magic is going to reinvent itself, and we're going to see more cooler innovations than ever before. I think that's what we're going to see, because a lot of the stuff that's coming out at the moment is just variations on the same thing. And lay people have their own versions of that. So there you go, guys. That is your predictions video for 2026. That's everything I think is going to happen in 2026. Now it's over to you. Do you agree or disagree with any of these predictions? Let me know down below. And if you have your own prediction, again, let me know down below. I would love to hear about it. Outside of that, thank you so much for watching the channel. Thank you so much for being a part of Magic TV. And I hope you have a wonderful 2026. As every other year, I will continue to be here every single day, delivering content for you right here. Until then, until seeing you again, my name's Craig. This is Magic TV. And don't forget, new year, new start. If you want to build your business bigger, if you want to learn more magic, if you want to learn new sleights, if you want to be a part of an ever-growing community, then go and join the Netrix. It's my online streaming platform for magicians, and you can get access immediately by going to thenetrix.com. I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching. My name's Craig, and this is Magic TV.